Hi, Principal Matters listeners. This is Will Parker along with my co host, Jen Schwanke. And before we jump into this week's show, which is an amazing interview with Amanda Austin, you're going to love this conversation with this incredible Principal of the Year. Um, I want to start with our Q&A, Jen. And our question of the week is always supported by our friends at Summer Pop's Math Workbooks. Because principals, when students practice math over the summer, their math scores go up. So, what's your summer math plan for this year? A great way to start is by ordering a free summer workbook sample at summerpopsworkbooks.com. Reach out to my friend Pete there and get your free sample today. Jen, here's the question that came from a survey that I sent out to some of my folks that I trained with. What are some of the successful methods for building actionable, sustainable systems regarding behavior and academics? That question is so big. I think
Right.
I'm like, you could write a book on that, Jen. So let's just go there for 5 minutes and see what thoughts we can add to building actionable, sustainable systems regarding behavior and academics.
Well, you're right. It's just such a gigantic question. And when I think about systems, I think about structures and frameworks that are always the same. I think of them as consistent, faithful, and equitable. And so to me, a system means you sit down with a team and you say, what's the problem and what is our process for managing this problem? What are our steps? What will we do every time? What will we need to change every time? What will depend on the situation, the environment, the child, what is fluid and what is absolutely not? And then communicate, and make sure everybody knows the system. But systems bring great comfort. When there's a plan, fear dissipates. And fear is what brings up all kinds of emotions in our schools. And so if the fear is, I don't know what will happen next, then that's where a system and a plan does its work.
Hmm. This is such a hard question to answer because it's really we could take. I mean, either part could take us forever, behavior or academics. So I'm struggling to know exactly where I want to start. But I keep thinking about the questions that we always ask when we're trying to respond, for instance, in PLCs or in student learning situations, which is, um, you know, what is it that we wanted students to learn? And then how do we know they've learned it? And then how do we respond when they haven't? I mean, those are all the those are some of the essential questions that we ask. And so I think about the same thing when it comes to behavior and academics. I'll just pick the behavior side. And we've talked about this in other settings, but um, it, and I know I'm a broken record, but I'll just keep saying the same things. Your school is your classroom. And so if you're looking for sustainable systems within a school, then as a leader, you have to think about the fact that, okay, just like I would expect that classroom teacher to have their learning standards and their objectives and their teaching and their modifications and their response and interventions and their remediations and their tutoring and all the things that are involved in good learning that are happening in that classroom, I have to take a step back and ask, well, what kind of systems have I built to support that across an entire campus? And so when it comes to student behavior, then what kind of expectations have I set for my students at the beginning? How do they know what those expectations are? How have I communicated it to them in a way that there are campus-wide expectations, not just classroom expectations? And then how have I communicated to my teachers and my school community what are the rewards and the consequences for good behaviors or challenging behaviors? And then how do I respond when those situations are happening with both affirmations for when the great behavior is taking place and celebrations, but also with follow up and consequences or interventions when challenging behaviors are happening. And I have had to communicate that in a way that it's is not just aspirational, it needs to be in writing. There needs to be specifics that are specific consequences, specific options available for student behaviors. And Jen, I know in some cases I'm just preaching to the choir. People are like, man, well, yeah, this is what we do. But then sometimes I'm surprised when I encounter some schools where those things aren't clear. And I think that clarity has to begin with leaders. And so as leaders, we have to ask ourselves the question, if I was to take a if I was to walk into my school as a stranger, how long would it take me to figure out what that system is? And if it takes me a long time to figure out what that is, it means that somebody hasn't made it clear. And it's the responsibility of the leader to take a look at those systems and make sure that they're clear and understandable and enforceable. Because if they're not, then somebody needs to take a step back and revisit how to create those. So there's no way in 5 minutes I'm going to tell you what that system should look like. I'm just trying to describe what the outcomes of a strong system are, I think.
Well, and let me, you know what I'm thinking about right now?
What?
I teach I teach for the Ohio State University, and I'm teaching a really fun class right now called, and it's instructional leadership. And I had a colleague of mine, Dr. Pete Curdy, come in and talk to them because he is one of the best evaluators I have ever met in my life, hands down. And he said to them, you know, teaching students has many, many similarities to leading adults.
Mhm.
And instructional leadership is often, teaching and guiding adults. Well, you know what? All my students turned in their first paper last week, and literally everyone quoted him. I saw him yesterday. I said, "My gosh, Dr. Curdy, with all of your citations." But it's really true because everything that you just said about a behavior system for students that adults follow can be applied to academics, to instructional leadership, to teacher improvement, to teacher support, to celebrating our best teachers, all of that. We want clarity, we want plans, we want systems. We need it to be understandable and clear, um, capability of implementation, all of that. So,
Yeah.
Dr. Pete Curdy is correct. How we teach students in our classroom is not all that far away from how we can guide and support adults.
Okay. Well, I'm going to stop there because you're going to get to listen to a conversation with the principal today whose work in the state of Louisiana has just been phenomenal. And she is a principal, Jen, that has stepped in and created amazing systems. So this is just a great question for this guest. So Principal Matters, thank you for this opportunity to answer these questions. And if you want other resources like this, you can always find them at williamdparker.com. And Jen, how can they stay connected with you?
Yep. Anyone can find me at jenschwanke.com.
As a school leader, you have a vision of a thriving, supportive educational environment where every teacher and student can succeed. With DigiCoach, you can turn that vision into reality. Imagine walking into a classroom with DigiCoach on your mobile device. Its customizable look-fors and pre-written feedback statements streamline your feedback process, saving you precious time. You're not just observing, you're actively supporting your teachers while generating data to drive instructional change. With the new coaching plan feature, you can effortlessly document action plans and coaching conversations. This ensures every teacher is supported and you can track their progress related to your campus goals. DigiCoach empowers you to customize the platform to fit your specific needs, reinforcing your vision at every step. And when you need support, the DigiCoach team becomes your team, with consulting efforts focused on realizing your organization's goals. By using DigiCoach, you lead your school to remarkable progress. Ready to turn your vision into reality? Visit digicoach.com and tell them that Will Parker sent you. Hi, friends. Did you know that Principal Matters, the School Leaders Podcast, has been downloaded over 1.5 million times? We are so proud to share conversations, interviews, and resources to support leaders like you who are serving school communities worldwide. And I'd like to invite you to explore our books, our professional development offerings, our Grow Academies, our masterminds, executive coaching, and keynote presentations, because we're here to help you and your teams build schools that you're proud to call home. So here's my question. How are you planning to keep growing in the semester ahead? We're booking events right now for the next 2 years, and we would love to serve you in person or virtually. So visit williamdparker.com and click services, or email me at will@williamdparker.com to connect. I would love to hear from you. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of today's show.
You're listening to Principal Matters, the School Leaders Podcast.
Principal Matters Podcast, episode 436. Hi, friends. This is Will Parker, host of Principal Matters, the School Leaders Podcast, where each week we bring you inspiring, innovative, and imaginative ideas for your own school leadership. And this week, we're going to be talking about achieving remarkable outcomes with my special guest, Dr. Amanda Austin. Dr. Amanda Austin is the director of Iberville Math, Science, and Arts Academy East in St. Gabriel, part of the East Iberville High School's magnet program in Louisiana. With 15 years of experience in STEAM education across elementary, middle, and high school levels, Dr. Austin brings a wealth of experience to her role. She holds a bachelor's of sociology from LSU, a master's of arts and teaching from Louisiana College, and a doctorate in education leadership from Lamar University. A key achievement in her work was reopening North Iberville High School after it was closed for over 10 years, transforming it into a thriving STEM-focused institution. She's the recent participant in the Louisiana Superintendent's Academy and ASCD's Champion in Education cohort, and she's dedicated to ensuring that all students reach their potential through teamwork and strong leadership. She's also recently been recognized as the 2025 Louisiana State Principal of the Year. Dr. Amanda Austin, welcome to Principal Matters Podcast. Why don't you fill in the gaps on that intro and tell listeners something else they may be surprised to know about you?
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. To fill in the gaps. I will say that one thing about me is I love a challenge. I haven't met a challenge that I haven't been able to overcome and succeed in. But I will say that after reopening North Iberville High School, our superintendent said, I saw what you did over there. You grew the program, our enrollment, our programming. And so I want you to do the same thing at another school across the district. So I had to cross the mighty Mississippi River. And again, that's how I ended up here at the Math, Science, and Arts Academy East. And so I'm proud to say that we have grown over 60 new students this school year to our enrollment. And we're an arts school, we're STEAM as well. And so we definitely have a thriving arts program with dance, music, vocal music, instrumental music, theater. We have a little bit of everything for kids. And so it's exciting to be here with a new challenge, but with a great team. We're doing a great job and making sure that our kids have great outcomes. I guess that's my word.
Oh my gosh. I have a couple of things to say in response to that. One is I have noticed in my work with great leaders that they almost always get rewarded with harder work. So congratulations for that reward,
Thanks.
but also congratulations for just the transformative work that you've done in both of the schools that you've led. And the second thing I want to say, just to set some context for Principal Matters listeners, that in the fall of 24, I had the opportunity to be in Baton Rouge for the Louisiana Association Principals Conference, and I met you there. And I was not only there to present, but I also stayed for the awards luncheon where you and several others were recognized for the great work you've been doing across the state of Louisiana. But Amanda, I think the most touching moment for me was when I got to see your parents present with you while you received that award. I'm sure that had to be an amazing opportunity for you as well.
Yes. My mother is a 40-year educator, retired a couple years ago. And so I think while I may have fought education, it was always in my blood. So to have my parents there with me to celebrate in these moments is something that I will never forget. They are supportive. They, even from my bio, I love school, but it's that drive that they instilled in me as a young child. If you're going to do it, be the best that you can. And so their support it means the world to me. And I hope my community, I hope my students and my teachers see that passion through my actions.
Well, behind every great leader is a story. And so I want to sit there. And if you don't mind, Amanda, this is the opportunity for us to learn about your leadership and its influences on schools. And obviously I have listeners that are aspiring leaders and veteran leaders all over the nation and the world. But tell us this Amanda Austin story. What inspired you to do the work you're currently doing? And then what are you most proud of in that work?
Yeah. So I guess my origin story is while I was at LSU, I did go to school for sociology with a concentration in criminology. I wanted to work at the law school. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. I worked at the law school, but I wanted to be a lawyer.
Mm.
And so I worked there all 4 years. But my last semester at LSU, I took a service learning class at Polk Elementary School, which is not far from the LSU campus. It was one teacher in particular, her name is Miss Coates, that she kind of just took a liking to me, and she said, this is something you're interested in, like you have a gift with kids, then I want you to teach a math lesson. And so I was like, all right, teach math. Like, growing up, math was kind of my nemesis. But I said, you know what, let me teach a math lesson. And she let me teach the class on that particular day, gave me some feedback, and then after the course ended, I kept going back because I just was like, I felt that warm and fuzzy feeling like I think I'm supposed to be here, but I don't know why. And so it was from that moment of being in that fifth grade math classroom that I said, I think that this is my purpose. I think I'm supposed to be an educator. To be a lawyer is somewhat reactive. And so, you've done something has happened, and you have to obtain services. But to be an educator is to be proactive. It's to give advice, wisdom, to teach, so that way, whenever things do occur, you have a skill set or you have a toolbox to pull from when something does arise. And so it was really at that moment, my senior year, as I'm, headed toward graduation, that I said, I think I want to be an educator. So then I went through an alternative certification program, and I taught for 3 years in my hometown of Lake Charles, Louisiana. And I said, if I'm going to do this, I eventually want to be in that office. I want to be a school leader. And so I got my ed leadership certification. And then like that, that kind of started it off. If I'm going to do this, I want to be the best that I can for the students that I have and the time that I have them. So that's kind of what inspired me to get into education. And what I'm most proud of is the impact and the relationships that I've had since I started teaching. Kids I had in elementary school actually went to my mother's middle school. And so she was their counselor for a period of time. And so they would say, well, I remember when Miss Austin would do this, or did Miss Austin do this when she was growing up? Because they want to know I'm a person. They want to know I'm real. And so that's exciting. And then even now in Iberville Parish, I see my kids who graduated often. I see them at the store. I see them in the community. And, some of them think like, you don't remember me, but I do remember you. I remember the things you like. I remember how you acted on campus, positive or negative. I remember every student because they made an impact on my life. And so just to have those conversations beyond graduation and those relationships is powerful.
Wow. Thank you for that origin story. And it is so inspiring. And when you think about, I think I can remember vividly in my younger years of teaching when kids started really probing into my personal life. I was like, wait a second, this is a wall, like I'm a professional and they're students. But then I began to realize like, oh my gosh, what a way to leverage more opportunities to learn when you let them know who you are, when you invite them into who you are as a person. And that doesn't just work in a classroom, does it, Amanda? It works. It works school wide as well. It works across
Yeah.
campuses and across communities. Talk to us a little bit about, with that in mind, what
Mhm.
you've had so much experience in the years that you've already been in leadership, and I'm just curious, what are some of the most important lessons you feel like you've been learning that could help others when they think about what important ideas to keep in mind when it comes to leading schools?
You can't do it by yourself. On my first principal role, I got my job 7 days before school started, which included the weekend. My counselor was new to his position. He was hired right before me. My master teacher, who supports instruction, I called her the next day after I got the job. So she came aboard on day 6. And I did not get an assistant principal until October that school year. And so when I say that I could not have done it without those individuals, I couldn't have. We bonded in a way that I can't explain because we were all new to our position at a school in a community that we did not live in. And we all had the same goal: give the kids our best. And that's exactly what we did for 4 years. Those were our kids. Those are still my babies, even though I'm no longer on that campus, because we gave them blood, sweat, and tears, um, because we wanted to make sure that students had everything that they need to be successful. There were times that we would kind of look at each other and say, well, whose responsibility is it to do this? Like whose job? Because again, we're all new to our positions. We've never done these jobs before. We're coming from other places, other roles. And so it's funny, but we made it work. There's nothing that we wouldn't do. We put on hairnets, we put on gloves and served food. During COVID, we came up to the school on the weekends and we cleaned because the custodians were out due to being tested positive and having to, stay at home for those period of days at the beginning of the pandemic. There's nothing that we haven't done on the campus. So whenever people say, well, my role is, your role is whatever is needed at that time. Like my job description doesn't say I need to cut grass, but if my grass is high at the front of my school, then I'm going to go make sure that my grass is cut because I want people to know that my school is an inviting place. But again, it wasn't just me. It was us. There was never I. It was us. It was a team. We did it together. And I still talk to these people on a regular basis, even though we're all different places. My counselor is now an assistant principal. My master teacher is now an assistant principal in different schools in the parish. And then I'm lucky enough that I got to keep my assistant principal from the first time we did this together. And now we're at a new school. So when I say we are growing together, we really are growing together. And it makes for a powerful team.
Okay, I want to stay on this, and this is not in our notes, because what I love about this conversation, it reminds me of my good friend Jimmy Casas always says the four most important words a leader can learn is I need your help. And there's also something really beautiful about when you build a team, and especially a trust among an administrative team, just how much more effective the work becomes. And I've been using this book all year long in some studies I'm doing on with leaders called The Speed of Trust by Stephen M.R. Covey. And he talks about in this book that the stronger the trust, the more efficient, the more achievement, the faster you move together versus teams with low trust, because low trust means you slow things down and there's always a tax, there's always a dividend. Not a dividend, there's always a tax on the work that you're doing together. So if you don't mind, because I have a lot of listeners who are either stepping into leadership or maybe their first role is an AP or dean, talk about that relationship between the principal and the assistant, and what are some of the important takeaways you've learned from how to cultivate that relationship in a way that can be most effective for schools?
Well, I like to say that I want my assistant principal to be my alter ego. I don't want to say good cop, bad cop, but I want them to, one, be able to think like me, but two, challenge me. I don't want a yes man. Or yes woman. I want someone who's going to say, I think we could do it better, or if we could be more efficient, or I think you're just off track. Tell me. It hurts. Corrective feedback hurts, but we need to receive it. But at the same time, I want them to think like me, because if I'm not here and they're in charge, then I want them to say, okay, these are the decisions that we would make, or this is kind of what we would do. And on top of all those things, our relationship is always one of coaching, because at the end of the day, my goal as a leader is to grow other leaders. And so I want to, one, put them in a position to make decisions and take responsibility. But two, I want to be able to coach them and say, hey, good job. I didn't think about that. You saw another perspective, another angle. And so we constantly have coaching conversations throughout the day as situations arise. And vice versa. Again, tell me, I'm not there, quote unquote, whatever that pinnacle is. I'm in development as well. And so we grow one another. And I do the same thing with my master teachers and our mentor teachers on campus, because they're the future leaders. And I want to give them those opportunities to lead on the campus. So that way, when they get these positions, they're not like, oh my gosh, I wasn't prepared. I never did this before. I want them to have those bits and pieces of experiences that start to develop their leadership personality.
What I love about that, Amanda, is that you are building the capacity of others to do the work that you want to be doing when you're not there.
Mhm.
and you're building the capacity of others to do the work on their own at some point too. You listed several of your friends who are also now just in other positions as school leaders as well. But in
Mhm.
that AP principal relationship, that alter ego, that person that challenges you, the person who can be you when you're not there, but that person who's coachable, and it's reciprocal. I know that when I
Mhm.
moved from assistant to principal, I had worked with the principal for years. Her name was Donna Brogan, and she was a mentor to me. And I remember having to sometimes kind of shine a light for her on things that maybe she wasn't seeing clearly because of her position or because of my proximity to someone else or students. And then when I stepped into the role of principal and had APs that I was training and coaching, I noticed immediately that they had to shine lights for me. That
Mhm.
somehow in those relationships within the school, sometimes APs can, sometimes people tell APs things they won't tell you, or sometimes they
Mhm.
just see things that you won't see. So that relationship of trust is just so essential. Anything else you want to add to that?
No, like I said, I am blessed to have now a 5-year relationship with my assistant principal, but I also have worked with another assistant principal. And so, again, learning one another, finding a common language and a balance to that relationship is important. Um, and it works. We like, it's a relationship. We have to invest in one another. And it's important to know to an extent what each other's love language is. Like, how do you feel appreciated? What works for you? What motivates you? What makes you feel, like I said, appreciated in the workplace? That, as a role, when I was an assistant principal, people say the principal is the hardest job, which it is, but the role of assistant principal is one of the hardest jobs as well. And so
Mhm.
I want my assistant principal to feel validated in the work that they do. So I have to know how they want to be validated and appreciated. And so, again, that's part of that relationship building and conversation.
Let's take a moment to thank our sponsors, and then we'll be right back. Principals know a strong school starts with a strong team, making sure teachers feel heard, supported, and valued. But in a busy school year, it's easy to miss how your staff is really doing. That's why I'm excited about Alpaca, a new way for school leaders to listen to their teachers and support them well. It all starts with one simple question: how are you doing? And how easy is that? Alpaca's quick pulse surveys give teachers a way to share honest feedback, no long forms or 1 to 5 scales, just meaningful insights that help you know where to celebrate and where to focus. And celebration, Alpaca makes it easy. Each month, Alpaca delivers a teacher celebration kit with care packages, recognition ideas, and fun activities. It's effortless for principals and ensures teachers feel heard and celebrated. With Alpaca, your teachers will feel heard and you will feel like a stronger leader. Make a real difference in your school's culture at alpacapacks.com/principal matters and get 15% off just for Principal Matters listeners. That's alpacapacks.com/principal matters. Why is IXL used in 95 of the top 100 U.S. school districts? Because it works. Research across 45 states show that IXL schools outperform other schools on state tests. With IXL, you get a personalized online learning and teaching solution that helps you improve achievement, empower teachers, track progress, and more. This one platform for K-12 helps teachers accomplish what normally would require dozens of other tools. For example, as students practice skills, IXL automatically adapts to ensure each learner is always supported and challenged at the right level. IXL also provides every student with a personalized learning plan to help them close knowledge gaps effectively. One of my favorite things about IXL is their personalized test prep tool. For exams like the SAT and ACT, IXL will analyze a student's most recent score and generate a custom list of skills to help them boost their scores. If you want to take the load off of your teachers so they can do their best work, IXL can help. Learn more at IXL.com/PM today. My dad was in the Navy, and so he was enlisted, not an officer, but he used to try to explain to me the structures of how the command worked on a ship, and the captain of the ship, which is your commanding officer, always had the second in command, which they called the XO, which was the executive officer. And he was really clear that as a sailor on that ship, it was almost always the executive officer that they were getting their direct commands from, while that
Mhm.
CO was the one up there calling the shots on the brig and sailing that ship. You can never underestimate the value of a great assistant principal because they're the ones making sure that everything's getting executed while you're doing the other work to make sure that that ship stays moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
I want to talk to I'm going to ask you two other questions, and I want to address the first one to new and aspiring leaders and the second one to veterans. So first to new and aspiring. If you're talking to someone who's stepping into this work, Amanda, maybe for the first time or maybe it's a new season for them, and you're able to sit across from them for a quick coffee, what's one or two things that you would tell them that just to hold on to as essential for this work?
One would be obviously teamwork. You can't do this work alone, or you will get burnt out very quickly. So you have to delegate and share responsibility in order to be sustained in the role of leadership. Another one would be, to be cliche, keep the main thing, which is student achievement.
Mhm.
There's going to be a lot of fires that come your way, a lot of obstacles, a lot of things that'll get you off track. But we have to remember at the end of the day, our goal is to make sure our students are learning and that they are developing to be, these well-rounded little beings. I have big kids too. I'm a pre-K 12, so I got little ones and I got big ones. But I want my kids to be well-rounded. I want them to be, social emotionally balanced. I want them to be academically, striving and achieving. But I want both all those things to be in this little bundle package, of individuals who not only are worried about themselves, but they care about others on the campus. And as a school leader, I have to make sure, are my actions aligning to what my end goal is? If my end goal is student achievement, is this, the lights being out, or, a light bulb that needs to be changed, or, the cafeteria is out of forks. Like, am I going to let those little things take me off track and get me flustered? Or am I going to make sure that I go back to what are we here for? To make sure the kids are successful. So just make sure as new leaders that you keep your focus and you have your priorities. So I think those are my two for my new leaders that I would tell them: teamwork and stay focused.
Well, and I heard three because you got
Oh,
teamwork, which is delegating so that that work is sustainable.
yeah.
Two, keeping the main thing so that student achievement remains the reason that that school exists. And then three,
Hmm.
and I loved how you said this, making sure that your actions align with those core values. And so everything that
Hmm.
you do, whether it's caring or disciplining or scheduling or whatever that is, that
Hmm.
all comes back to the main thing. And
Yeah.
so it's just so important. Now, for veteran leaders, because guess what? Now you've been both. For veteran leaders, sometimes it's hard to stay motivated in the long haul or to figure
Yeah.
out how can this work be, how can I make the work more sustainable? Because everyone goes through seasons. So I'm just curious if you were talking to that veteran leader who was just like, man, hey, I might need a shot in the arm, or maybe I need some perspective check. What feedback would you give them, Amanda?
Um, this one's a hard one. I guess 9 years in administration, maybe I am in the like veteran category. Um, but no, I would say keep your flame lit, keep your passion ignited. But sometimes that means that we have to change our circle, or we
Mm,
have to change our disposition, or we have to change the influences that are around us. Birds of a feather flock together. If we're all kind of in the same boat and no one is kind of pulling out um, things that we could kind of focus on in a positive way, then sometimes we have to change our groups. One thing I tell people in my district often is I'm always going to find the silver lining. There's always a positive, even in a negative situation. And so I'm going to be that person to bring it up. Like, oh my gosh, we have to do what? We have to check. Okay. All right, guys, let's get it together. Let's find the positive. And I'm always going to bring up what that positive is to try to change people's perspectives, because
mm,
being negative or complaining is not going to change our circumstance. And again, I'm going to go back to keep the main thing the main thing. If we're here for student achievement, then how can we turn this, negative into a positive that's going to positively impact and move our students on an everyday basis. So keep the flame lit, passion reignited, and sometimes you gotta move around to find that right group that's going to do that for you.
There's so much wisdom in that. There's this saying, and I don't know who to attribute it to because I've heard it said by lots of other people that you're the product of the people that you spend the most time with. And when I used to hear that comment, and I used to hear that comment when I was still a principal, I would think, well, that's not fair. I spend the majority of my day correcting kids, or coaching people that are like 20 years younger than me or whatever. But I had a couple of thoughts in response to that, Amanda, which is number one, that's a good thing that we can spend our time pouring into others because people need that feedback from us. But then I had to ask myself a harder question, which was, okay, if in the environment of my work, I'm not always connecting with growth, then what can I do to intentionally change that?
Mm-hmm.
And so that means I need to intentionally schedule time with other friends who can help me grow. Which is how I met you. You intentionally, of course, you were being awarded, so you were invited, but you spent a day learning with other leaders. You spent a day in sitting through the PD that I provided, and just giving yourself permission to reflect on your own growth. So that's one. And the second thing is, and this is just personal, but I just also decided, okay, who are people I admire, their work or their writings or their leadership. And I can read their book or listen to their podcast, or I can go to a conference. And so how can I begin to create the kind of environment that will help me keep that flame burning and that passion going in that work too? And so I know this wasn't in our notes, but I'm just curious for how have you practiced that when it comes to staying passionate and keeping that flame going in your work, because you've done hard work.
Well, I would definitely say by attending the Louisiana Association of Principals conference, regardless of, being awarded, because I want to be around other individuals. I want to be around other school leaders who have similar or different challenges. Again, I like a challenge. So I want to hear what other people are going through, or people who can give me feedback on things that I could do better on my own campus. Again, one of my goals as a leader is, regardless of where you put me, wherever I am at, I want to make a positive change. I want to shift the atmosphere of my school and of my community. And so being around other people who think the same thing, because I could have been at school, but I wanted to be at the PD and I made intentional plans to be there. Those are the people who I want to talk to. Those are the individuals that I want to learn something from. And like you, I love podcasts. I love to read books. YouTube technology is really at our fingertips. And so if I can't get to you, then I could see what you're doing. I could hear what you're doing. And then with social media, it's so easy to connect with people now, just to say, hey, I have a question. Let me, send you a message and get a response. And that's important. We don't grow if we don't step out and do something different. And so I don't mind stepping out. I always tell people to ask the question. The worst thing that you could be told is no. But if you don't ask, then you'll never know. And that's even worse. And so that's kind of one of my philosophies.
I love that. Now, I want to celebrate as we're wrapping up the award that you've been recognized for as the 2025 Louisiana State Principal of the Year, because you're going to be submitting that application to the National Association of Secondary School Principals. By the time this recording is being listened to, will be in the spring of 25, and probably in the fall of next school year, you'll be invited to Washington, D.C. to be recognized as the State Principal of the Year. There'll be finalists and a national winner chosen. And of course, I'm going to be rooting for you, Amanda. But the most important part of that experience is going to be what I experienced when I got to go as an AP of the Year, is being able to sit in the room with other leaders from across the U.S. and go, oh my gosh, we share so much in common. And my ability to grow is so much bigger than just the community that I'm in or the state that I'm in, or even the nation I'm in. This is a community. It's wonderful to see how the lessons that we're learning in education are universal across all settings and in all cultures and in all languages too. But having said that, there is something I think so important, and this was an epiphany moment for me when I sat in that room, and I also recognized that every single person in there is a legacy builder. And every single person that gets these awards represents all the other people that are doing really hard work every single day. And I call all of my principal friends unsung heroes
Mm,
because sometimes you're doing battles that you can never ever talk about publicly, Amanda. You're
mm,
dealing with student situations that no one ever gets to hear that story because you've protected that confidentiality. You are rescuing families that no one else even knows that's happened, or encouraging a teacher to stay in the profession that you've rescued from leaving that's still there. Um, and in that process, you've got to take care of you at the same time. And then the presentation that we did together when I was at the principals conference, I presented on my book, Pause, Breathe, Flourish. And I know that content's fresh because you and I just experienced that together. So I'm just curious, and I'm asking this very selfishly because I love feedback. But what was something from that that conversation around your own self care that has helped you think about your own sustainability as you move forward?
I think one of the principles that you mentioned was your time. And so, you made us do some math, where we calculate how long we've been here. We kind of project how long we want to be here, and then we subtract how much time we have left. That was impactful. Like that gives you, like, that tests your mortality. But for me, all the things you said kind of fell under that funnel of time, your influence, your legacy, your impact. Because at the end of the day, I want to make sure the legacy I leave behind is one of belief in my teachers and students. The legacy I want to leave behind is that I cared for the community that I was in, and that we can and will achieve everything that we set forth if we work together and we do it. And so, I don't want to say I'm counting my time, but I want to make my time count. And so that's something that I took away from your message that really was like, ooh, it got a little deep, but it was in a good way, because as a school leader, we have to make the time count. We have to make sure that everything that we do, again, leads to student achievement, because our students are the future. And I want to make sure when I get old and retired, that if I have a doctor come in and it's a former student of mine, that I trust in their abilities and skills, because I made sure that they had everything necessary to be successful that led them to this point. So that is something that really resonated with me from meeting you, and learning more about, breathe, positive, breathe and flourish. But your presentation was just, it really hit home.
Amanda, you just made my day with because I'm going to steal your language, which is counting my time because my time counts. And I want to speak directly to Principal Matters listeners as we're wrapping up, because everything that Amanda said applies to you, your belief, your care, your commitment to achieving these goals together is because you're a part of something that's so important. So, Amanda, as we wrap up, how can listeners stay connected with you, and any parting words of advice that you want to say as we say goodbye?
Yeah. Well, on all social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all those good places. Dr. Austin, Amanda Austin. So Dr. _Amanda Austin. Please follow me. You'll definitely see, I always, connect to our school page, because I can't just say the work, I need to show the work. And so, we do great things at MSA East, the Math, Science, and Arts Academy in Iberville Parish. And so I want to, again, I can't tell others what to do. I want to show them, with my actions, again, towards student achievement. So you can find me on all those platforms. And just words of advice are, again, if you need your flame relit, then get involved in your local associations. Find professional development. Professional development can be free. Again, social media and technologies at our fingertips. And so I don't ever, if I encounter an educator or a school leader that's in a rut, then I want to make it my mission to pull them out, or to give them resources to help them pull out, because our work is meaningful and it is life changing. Everyone comes from teachers and educators. The doctors, it all started with the teacher, the lawyers, educators, we all have been influenced. And so I want to make sure that those in this work are sustained, and that they are, fed, quote unquote, with all the resources that are out there for us. Sometimes we just need help finding it. And so, you know, after 9 years of doing this in a variety of schools with a variety of grade levels, it can be hard, but it's so worth it. It really is. And you know, it's individuals like you who, you know, who keep us at bay and who help us to find that path. So I just thank you for this opportunity. And you know, I just know that education is in the right direction. We just have to keep pushing.
Well, Dr. Amanda Austin, you've just made my day. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing serving your school community. And Principal Matters listeners, just to repeat what Amanda just said, it is hard, but it is worth it. So thank you for doing what matters, and we'll talk to you again next week. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Principal Matters, the School Leaders Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, would you take a moment and like, share, subscribe, or leave us a review? In fact, if you share it out with a friend, even more people can become a part of these conversations. Sign up for our newsletter at williamdparker.com for even more free resources. And don't forget to check out our website to learn more about our books, professional development offerings, Grow Academies, masterminds, executive coaching, and keynote presentations. Wow, let's keep learning together. And thank you for doing what matters.
Principal Matters.